You ever think about like all those app permissions? We just kind of blindly click accept
Yeah,
on
yeah.
what's really going on behind the scenes with all our data, right? Today we're doing a deep dive into an app you might use all the time without even thinking about it. SVR, a background video recorder.
Okay.
We've got the SVR app listing right here from the Google Play Store. And let me tell you, those user reviews
Mm-hmm.
and the developer details, they're a gold mine.
So background recording,
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting, right? It's super handy to capture like unexpected moments.
right.
But the
Where?
question is, are we trading our privacy and security for that convenience?
Right.
That's what we're going to be exploring.
Okay, so SVR, short for Smart Video Recorder, it does what it says. It records video and audio in the background on your phone.
Okay.
And they say right in the description, they promise to capture moments with full transparency and user control.
Uh-huh.
Do you think they actually live up to that promise?
Well, their description does mention a persistent notification feature. So theoretically, you should see a notification icon whenever the app is recording.
Right.
But the effectiveness of that really depends on, how they actually implemented it and if it's truly noticeable.
Yeah, because if it's like hidden away somewhere, it's not really transparent.
Exactly.
Well, let's hear what actual users have to say.
Okay.
Some people rave about the background recording. They love that it's discreet and, they can capture things without anyone knowing.
Yeah.
But then you have complaints like this one from December 2024.
Oh.
Someone said, my screen was flooded with such an impenetrable barrage of ads and upgrade pop-ups, I couldn't even get to the camera.
Wow.
Have you ever had that happen? I mean, it's so frustrating.
Oh, yeah, those apps can be a nightmare.
Right, like you just want to use the app.
Exactly.
All right, so let's take a look at the permissions SVR requests.
Okay.
Camera, microphone, and storage.
Now, that's pretty standard for a video recording app.
Sure.
But
It's not just about recording, is it?
right? Access to your camera and microphone means the app could theoretically record you without you knowing.
That's scary.
Yeah. And access to storage means it can see and potentially use other files on your device.
Wow.
And this is a bigger issue with app permissions in general.
Yeah.
We often click accept without really understanding what we're agreeing to.
It's like signing a contract without reading the fine print.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about what data they access, but what they do with it.
Right.
Could it be used for targeted advertising? Could it be vulnerable to data breaches?
Oh, yeah.
These are serious questions we need to be asking.
And speaking of transparency, they really highlight that persistent notification feature to show they're recording, but then some users are complaining about these intrusive ads getting in the way.
Yeah,
Do those pop-up ads really align with transparency? I'm not so sure.
that's a good point. Even if they are technically transparent by providing a notification, are they transparent in the way that actually respects the user's experience?
That's a great question.
Or are they just using transparency as a marketing tactic?
Okay, now let's talk about the folks behind SVR DevSig Technologies,
Cool.
a company based in India, and they even list their phone number and the CEO's email right there on the Play Store listing.
Really?
I mean, it's great, they're open, but it also makes you wonder about their security practices.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that DevSig develops other apps too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, things like screen recording and AI chatbot apps.
Huh.
So this means they're potentially gathering data from various aspects of your digital life.
Right.
Your videos, your screen activity, your conversations.
It's a lot of info.
It really is. And it all ends up in one company's hands.
It really makes you think, right?
It does.
Like, what could they potentially do with all that data? And what does it mean for our privacy?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Big questions, and we'll dig into those more after a quick break.
Sounds good. It's like we're giving them all these different puzzle pieces, huh?
Yeah.
Little bits of data, and then suddenly they have like this whole picture of who we are and what we do.
Yeah, it's kind of unsettling when you think about it like that.
It is.
And then there's the whole legal side of things, too.
Oh, right.
SVR's description has this disclaimer
Uh-huh.
that basically says, like, hey, users are responsible for following the law when they're recording.
Okay.
It's like they're saying if you use our app to secretly record someone's private conversation, that's on you, not us.
It's tricky, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to protect themselves legally, but it does raise the question of like who's really responsible when technology is misused.
Right.
Laws often lag behind, technological advancements, and it's not always clear cut.
Okay, so let's say they've covered their bases legally, right?
Okay.
Does that make it ethically sound?
Well, that's a whole other can of worms, isn't it?
Right.
Legality and ethics, they're not always the same thing.
No.
Just because something is legal doesn't mean it's ethical,
Hmm.
especially when we're talking about personal data.
So even if they're technically following the rules, we still need to think about like the ethical implications of what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, as users, we have a responsibility too.
Okay.
We need to be informed about the apps we're using, understand what permissions we're giving them, and think critically about, what could happen.
So it's not just on the app developers.
Right. It's a two-way street.
We have to be proactive too.
Exactly. We can't just blindly trust companies to handle our data responsibly.
Well, speaking of being proactive, SVR, they just released an update for Android 15,
Okay.
focusing on enhanced performance and bug fixes.
Hmm.
Do you think that means they're committed to improving the app and addressing those security concerns?
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
It could be, genuine improvement.
Right.
Developers are always working to make their apps better and stay ahead of those security threats.
Right.
But it's also possible they're reacting to issues that people have already found.
So it's like this constant back and forth
Yeah, kind of like a cat-and-mouse game.
between the developers and the people trying to find those security flaws.
Exactly. Technology is constantly evolving, and with each advancement, there are new vulnerabilities that pop up.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
It's a constant race to stay ahead of the curve.
So it feels like we're always playing catch-up when it comes to protecting our data.
It's a valid concern, and it highlights the importance of, being vigilant and taking steps to safeguard our information.
So what can we actually do about it? I mean, do we just have to accept that using these apps means sacrificing some level of privacy?
Not necessarily. There are definitely things we can do to minimize the risks.
Like what?
Well, first start by being selective about the apps you download.
Okay.
Do your research. Read the reviews and ask yourself, do I really need this app? And are the features worth the permissions they're asking for?
That's a good point. I know I'm guilty of downloading apps that I never really use,
We've all been there.
just because they seem cool or convenient at the time.
Right. But it's important to be mindful about, what data we're giving away.
And what about the apps we already have? Any tips for managing those permissions?
Absolutely. Most smartphones will let you review and revoke permissions for each app individually.
Okay.
So take some time to go through your settings and see which apps have access to things like your camera, microphone, storage, location, contacts.
I should probably do that.
You might be surprised by what you find.
Yeah, it's amazing how we just give these apps access to so much information without even really thinking about it.
It's easy to get caught up in the convenience and functionality they offer,
For sure.
but we can't be naive about the potential consequences.
You know, this whole deep dive into SVR, it's really opened my eyes to the bigger issue here. It's
Yeah.
like we've uncovered this whole hidden world.
That's the power of exploration, isn't it?
Right.
Sometimes you take a closer look at one specific thing and it reveals all these patterns and connections that you might have missed before.
So where do we go from here? What's the next step in this journey of like understanding and protecting our data?
I think the most important thing is to just keep asking questions. Don't just accept things at face value. Be curious,
Oh.
be critical, and be proactive in learning about how your data is being used and how you can protect your privacy.
It's like we're digital detectives uncovering the secrets behind these seemingly harmless apps.
Exactly.
Wow, this deep dive into SVR, it's really been eye-opening.
It has.
It's crazy how something so simple like a video recording app can lead to all these big questions about like privacy and, our digital lives.
Let's we started with this one little thing and
Yeah.
ended up down this rabbit hole.
Totally. So for everyone listening, let's recap what we've learned about SVR and what it means for your own digital life.
Okay.
We started by looking at SVR, this app that lets you record video in the background.
Right.
And we saw how it could be super useful, but also kind of concerning when it comes to privacy.
Yeah, we saw some pretty mixed reviews.
Oh, yeah.
Some people loved it for its functionality, but others had some negative experiences.
Like that one review with all the pop-up ads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about their whole transparency thing.
Yeah, right. And then there was that legal disclaimer
Oh, yeah.
where they basically said like, hey, it's the user's responsibility to follow the law.
It's like they're trying to shift the blame.
Kind of makes you wonder who's really accountable.
Exactly.
And we can't forget about DevZig Technologies, the company behind SVR.
Right. They have all those other apps, too.
So many apps. It's kind of scary to think about all the data they might have on us.
It is.
Eh.
You could have our videos,
Yeah.
our screen activity, even our conversations.
It's like they have this whole digital profile of who we are.
Yeah. It really makes you think about how much we rely on our phones and these apps for everything.
We do pretty much everything on our phones these days.
It's just part of our lives now. But that's why it's so important to be aware of the risks and take steps to protect ourselves.
So what's the biggest takeaway you want people to remember?
Just be mindful. Think before you click accept on those permissions.
Okay.
Do your research, read reviews, and really think about if you actually need that app and if the features are worth giving up your data.
It's kind of like inviting someone into your home, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just let anyone in without knowing who they are.
You got to be careful. And remember, you have more control over your data than you might think.
Right. You can always go into your settings and review and revoke permissions for each app.
So we can take back some of that control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It might take a little time, but it's worth it to make sure your information is safe.
Well, I think this deep dive has definitely made me more aware of all this stuff.
I think it's made us all think a little differently about the apps we use.
Yeah, and it's not just about SVR, it's about all apps and how much access we're giving them.
It's a whole new world out there, and we need to be smart about how we navigate it.
So for everyone listening, keep those questions coming, be curious, and most importantly, take charge of your digital privacy.
It's your data protected.